Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to introduce the SGS webinar for the overview of social audits. My name is Thomas Miko. I am the Sales Director for the Industrial and Transportation Division within our Business Insurance Unit. And your speaker today is our very own Abdullah Munir. Abdullah is our Senior Product Manager who comes with an impressive background on social responsibility. SGS is the world's leading inspection, verification, testing, and certification company. We have over 100,000 employees in over 2,600 locations in 140 countries, and we have expertise across 7 focus areas. We provide assistance and expertise with global support and services that cater to all industries. We are the largest provider of audits, certification, training, and advisory services. We have the ability to turn your needs into comprehensive solutions. And we do that with a consistent service delivery via our worldwide network and global footprint with local reach. We have highly experienced subject area experts, just like Abdullah Munir, that is here with us today, ready to offer training to you from our SGS Academy. At the end of the presentation, we will have a link for you to the actual SGS Academy. So please keep that in mind. And there will be a short Q&A at the end. Please put all your questions in the chat box that is destined for that, so we can discuss at the end of the presentation. Responsible business services are applicable to an industry and have many aspects: social, environmental, health and safety, security, quality. They can also be customized or used as gap audits. So thank you again for joining us today. I will now turn it over to Abdullah. Thank you.
Hello, all. Good afternoon. I would like to share the contents we have, and I like to clear it that our focus is to understand the social audit from a site level, not only just high level. Okay, so in the previous slide, we told that our focus is to understand the social audit from a site level, not just the high level of the management systems or decision making. What is a social audit? Audit is a fact-finding mission. For social audit, of course, same, with an assessment process of measuring, understanding, and reporting performance against a scheme of manufacturing or service entity that generally includes the below aspect: social and human rights, safe workplace, including worker safety, environmental impact control and performance, ethical business practice. Aspects of a scheme can be limited or extended. Why it is very important these days for a social audit to your business? The most important, of course, the supply chain requirement and the transparency in the supply chain. The interested parties and stakeholders who are asking for it, they're the main drivers of the audit these days. And we not only focus the improvement, but we like to improve continually. And modern days, our business should focus the social development, which means we go for business, of course, profit, of course, but our activity must not harm with any party's impact by us. That will increase the brand image. And finally, we'd like to ensure our effort to meet not only legal requirements, but also all due diligence and human rights issues. just said, these days, social audits drivers are the customer yet, or the interested parties. And we divide into main four folds. The external stakeholders, you see, those are, of course, starting with the supply chain management and ESG risk analysis performances, and many association like Coalition of Action of Sustainable Supply Chain and Initiative. Regulatory and legal requirement of a specific country goes beyond by the social requirement or other international human rights law set by many other countries. For example, in Canada recently adopted a new Slavery Act, that Supply Chain Act, and Europe many Supply Chain Act, and for example, Due Diligence Act, UK Modern Act, Germany Supply Chain Act, California Supply Chain Transparency Act, or Australian Modern Slavery Act. There are many. Investors these days determine the ESG performance through green initiatives, business visibility reporting, good governance culture, reporting of social media, and brand image, of course. And with many of the audit requests by the interested party, external or internal regulation, of course, we like to avoid too many audits. So we need to apply system approach where audits are coordinated or harmonized. That will reduce the number of audits. Going for an integrated management system audits that will not only cover a specific site performance or local law, but all other human rights and United Nations guiding principles. We also try to focus these days how to apply PDCA, plan, do, act strategy for an effective social audit. How a social audit looks like for a site who face the audit as the first time. Starts with the opening meeting. Auditor completes, clears what the process, scope, and planning, and also they discuss logistics, how to complete the audit. A complete and detailed tour of the site of the factory, and it includes process of production, storage, warehouse, and accommodation, if applicable. Means if you have worker or migrant worker who you provide accommodation, they are by default within your scope. It doesn't have to be defined in the scope. Private interviews with employees who are selected by the auditor, not by the management. And the interview is conducted without any management present. For a social audit by any CB, any certification body, you would expect that auditor would like to return, of course, working with you at the night of the first day or very early morning on the second day to cover the employee interview for the night shift, or you have a graveyard shift. And that is a mandatory expectation for auditors to check with the site, and auditors will have to notice it if it is denied. If you have union or any form of worker representative systems, they will be also interviewed. Managers and supervisor who managing workers and process and performances of a social audit, they get interviewed. Document and record review of all aspects. It includes sensitive info like I-9 form. Let me repeat here, our focus social audit in the USA and its challenges. So if some of you from outside, let me tell you, I-9 form is a eligibility verification form to say if the worker is eligible to work in the USA. And some states, not all, it is mandatory for site to complete the e-verification. That means a I-9 completed I-form is verified by the government as well, which is the best way to manage the I-9 form. So auditors will ask this information to verify. And as a site, you would expect that auditor must be able to review all the requested documents. If there is any sensitive information during the audit that auditors request, the idea is he should or she should verify the process is clear. Any auditor will not supposed to take any document with him or her. We have the opportunity to talk about this sensitive area more in the future social audit webinars, where we'll do it product specific or process specific. In the closing meeting, auditor will clearly share the result of the audit and any plan of action as necessary. There are the common elements of a social audit out of the scopes, which is determined by the customer. And these are the 12 elements. So some scheme, you see that the name of each elements can be a little different. They are combined to make it 10 elements, 9 elements, or sometimes 12 elements. But these are the common area you would expect a social auditor's covering or in a scheme. Management systems and human right due diligence, compliance with the laws and client requirements, forced labor, ensuring responsible recruitment, child labor, young labor, discrimination, grievance mechanism, freedom of association, working hours, wages, benefits, health and safety, environment, anti-bribery and integrity. We are taking up questions from you, whether you are aware of when a social auditor arrives at your site for a semi-announced audit. The objective is to know if you know or what is semi-announced audit. I give you, let's say, about 30 seconds. Just give you 10 more seconds, please. It's a simple question. Let's try to answer. Thank you. So are you aware of when social auditor arrives at your site for a semi-announced audit? We get about 61% yes and 38% no. So we understand the audit types and what happens with the semi-announced audit and why we are having semi-announced audits. Based on the risk analysis, scheme owner or your customer determines the audit type. It could be announced, semi-announced, or unannounced. Some certification standards, they have also unannounced audit in their scheme by default. So announced audit body and you will agree a date where auditors will arrive. Semi-announced audit, based on the customer or scheme requirement, the site will be provided with an audit window between 2 to 4 weeks, during which the auditors will arrive and undertake the audit. However, you do not know the specific date of the audit, and you do not expect auditor to contact you with any audit information or agenda or anything. You can work with your certification body for 1 or 2 blackout dates if the scheme allowed. Unannounced audit. With a 6-month window, auditor may arrive any date and no advance notification is provided. These are guided by the certification scheme or the assessment scheme. And this type of audit are conducted based on the risk factor, risk zone, and many other factors that your customer or decides based on the performance. You would hear about the protocol of remote social audit or SVA audit, which is SEDEX virtual audit. It comes with a limited scope and not accepted by the AAPSCA. What is AAPSCA? If you don't know, Association of Professional Social Compliance Auditor, who maintains social auditors qualification, and they do not accept this audit as a social audit, so it has a limitation. Retailers allowed this mainly during the pandemic. If you, for any reason, if you go for or you are like to check for a social audit remotely or SEDEX audit, you would need to check with your customer if they accept this thing for you still. And its validity is just for a year. Reliable internet and Wi-Fi network throughout the facility is a precondition. All preconditions are checked before the audit is allowed to conduct. So you may agree with a audit once your customer is accepting and audit body is also agreeing. However, the audit may not be confirmed until you are checked that you are eligible for the SBA audit. SGS globally, huge number of product and social audit scheme and services they provide. We're focusing few of the scheme that we manage from the North America, and also we can bring you any other social audit service or product by global team if we see that is viable for you and for us. Our focus in this slide to introduce you the sector and the social audits that are common to all sectors, and also to tell you that most of the social audit are still driven by the customer, and so the validity depends with the performance by the customer. You'd see social compliance for food sector, SEDEX members ethical trade or SMETA audit, or we call it NRS audit. You will understand soon what is NRS audit. Is common for every sector. And as of now, 80% or more than 80% social audits customer demanding for SMETA, because it is mutually accepted by many other brand and instead of their own code of conduct audit. You would see in food sector, just I'm giving a very brief, there are standard like Coke standalone audit. For example, if you are supplying to Coke, you can have Coke standalone audit. However, if you have a SMETA audit conducted already, and you can ask that you have a social audit conducted for SMETA, and they will accept SMETA audit instead of Coke standalone audit. These are it works. For chemical sector, we have also Together for Sustainability Audit and Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Initiative Audits. SMETA and SGS Code of Conduct is common. In industrial sector, you see so many schemes. Most are second party, third party, and expire within 1 to 3 years. That include SLCP, Social and Labor Convergence Program, or RBA, Responsible Business Alliance, and many more. We will be focusing SMETA and SGS Code of Conduct audit because they are adaptable to any sector. We'll figure out how. We have also certification scheme for social audit. For example, ASC Aquaculture Stewardship Council. This is for farming sector, fish farming in the sea, which includes quality and environmental sustainability. Another standard called FISH, Fairness, Integrity, Safety, and Health, and it is specifically for crew who for the fishing vessels. And since this is a certification audit, you see the validity is 3 years. Every year you have to go for surveillance audit, and the advantage is you can go for multi-site. One of the newest standard we have, which covering all the sectors as a certification audit, which is FSC 24000. You can get more information on the FSC website. The advantage of FSC 24 is it is ISO aligned. So if you are ISO certified for food industry, like let's say ISO 22000 or ISO 9000 safety and environmental, or OSHA's, which is ISO 45000, previously it's called 18000. It means that your system is already designed, and then if you add FSS 24000, you just feed into the human rights element and other element, and your structure is there. That is the advantage of FSS 24000 as a new standard. And it is a voluntary certification scheme and recognition through a public register. SGS also designs and adopts social audit protocol for customer. And we also have a digital platform like SEDEX. We use CATS, who with this thing, customer can have a interface from their end to have social audit and result immediately. We do provide pre-audit or gap assessment audit service. The scope can be defined between SGS and the customer. And the gap assessment audit can be completed for a specific scheme or for a certification standard. The difference is the audit outcome is not related to the main audit. There is no continuity of the gap assessment audit versus main audit of those social gap assessment audit. And it is completely a audit like a main audit. Only thing is you work out what would be your scope between you and SGS. In the previous slide, I was discussing about scope. Similarly, many customer or scheme owner has their own code of conduct. For example, I just shared Coke. Unilever had their code of conduct. Nike or many retailers or buyers had their own code of conduct. However, if you say that you are conducted your social audit of SMETA, and since they are a member of SMETA, they accept your audit called mutual recognition audit. What we need to do additionally is transfer the SMETA audit outcome to the additional document known as addendum. So for you will complete the SMETA audit, which is 99% of the audit. Then it is SGS job to transfer the result to that addendum. And some examples are Unilever SMETA audit, SJP Coke audit, Hershey audit with SMETA. So that's called addendum. We can do that, or for any customer, we can do that. Let's see another interesting case. Well, I'll give you a minute here for you to read and answer. Okay, let's see the result. So about 33% says yes, we can ask the audit, and 67% no, we cannot request the audit. Yeah, that is correct. We cannot request the audit. Scope of the social audit. We'll understand what are the scope and what we cannot do in the social audit. So a site that has a legal license and the buildings under the same license, they're in the scope. Dormitories, if you have a dormitories, that is by default in the scope. For SMETA audit, no multi-site assessment is allowed on the digital platform as of now. However, many other schemes like FSC 24 or SGS responsible supply chain audit, they would allow social multi-site audit. A social audit will cover the entire site for safety and environmental aspect, even if you supply from a specific production line. Employees, all types of employees, regular, temporary by the site, which is temporary employees but under the site payroll, or temporary employees supplied by the agency, migrant employees, seasonal, internee, or other any special program. All types of employees are by default under the scope. Contractor, security guards, cleaners who are indirectly related to the production or service activity for that specific site are included in the scope. Sampled workers for interviews can be salaried or hourly and be selected from any as defined above. Only management who has the decision-making power and support staff of HR, they may not be considered employees or worker interview category. In a workers interview or employee interview, no management should be present. Management interviews are not considered worker or employee interview, but are essential process for document review. For example, we are checking HR payroll record, concerned payroll manager, that is by default a management interview. But that number will not be counted for employee or worker interview. Site manager is responsible for providing all requested documents to the auditor on site. If the corporate office manages HR-related documents, the site will ensure those available to the auditor during regular audit time. The site is also responsible for facilitating requested documents for sampled employees of staffing agency during an audit. The site has contractual agreement and monitoring system for staffing agencies, ensuring their compliance with local laws and similar protection of the social audit scheme. So one thing, before we get to this slide, that we shared seasonal employees are under the scope. And when you have a seasonal employees, you must ensure that you request an audit and that auditor will be able to check the seasonal employees. Otherwise, the auditor will notice it in the report and audit result may not be accepted by the client. We will be sharing a little bit of the scheme. Like these are the SMETA is that more than 80% these days customer is demanding these days. So that's why we're going to highlight and try to reduce some confusions we have that we experience with our customer. SEDEX, Supplier Ethical Data Exchange, a non-profit membership organization for retailers, supplier and audit bodies who independently tracks audit performance for its members. That means if you are requested or if you go for SMETA audit, which is called SEDEX Members Ethical Trade Audit, you must be a member. SEDEX is the name of the organization, where SMETA is the audit methodology. Confusion is SGS is not related to SEDEX. We provide audit for SEDEX member, and we are also a member like you with the role to conduct the audit. However, we experience sites are always coming back to us with accounts pay related issues, error made by site like address change or something, or merging accounts coming back to SGS. These are not in the SGS opportunity to fix. That's why you must check with SEDEX to have them sorted out. And many other guidance we can share only that are publicly available and SEDEX shared with us to share with our client. However, all social audit guidance, site workbook, everything is available with SEDEX, or for a particular scheme, the scheme owner is responsible for you to guide for the social audit. The site can see the audit on SEDEX after SGS finalized the audit report. And your customer who are member of SEDEX can see the audit result once site give access. SGS has recently updated their own code of conduct, which is specific to industry. And you see the industry cover for this scheme, automotive or industrial side, textile side, service industry, IT and stuff. The objective is to move away from traditional auditing that only evaluates workplace, foster responsible business practice, and mitigate human rights risk and adverse impacts across your supply chain. It includes advanced human rights across your operations and meet stakeholders' expectations, avoid reputational damage, hefty penalties, and ESG reporting coverage. The biggest advantage I see those who already used is it has a generic social audit checklist and then also customer industry specific. For example, automobile or fishing vessel, there is additional checklist. So it covers any type of industry and specific risk category. We are here the challenging part. We'll soon understand what are the challenges, some example of the challenges and how we can overcome. However, let's see. Please read these things and help us know what do you think most challenging from below. Thirty seconds more, then we go to the next slide. Let's try to answer everyone. This is just the risk, so everyone can be correct. Okay, let's get to the next page. So here we see about 25% believe stricter international law and our ILO requirement, which are flexible in the US, is the main challenge. 33% believe supporting social compliance verifications for agency worker is challenging than those for our regular workers. Open door practice, union issues, the next challenging things, which is similar to the first one, and the pay records, including sensitive documents, confidential stored in the corporate office, we cannot do. This type of challenge, we believe about 16%. Let's see the challenges actually, and how can we overcome. About audit timing and employee availability. Audit, remember we discussed it already, audit is expected to be scheduled during the production and harvesting season, or if you will. So audit, you would expect auditor is looking for your production or your service when it is functioning. If it is not there, the audit will notice it and audit may remain incomplete. So that's why we try to avoid when employees are not available. Seasonal employees not available who are dormitories. What strategy do we do? We can plan it in advance, 8 to 12 months, let audit body knows, hey, I need this audit during my harvesting season or production season. And if you see that audit is coming in a different time, seek time with your customer so that you explain when are you looking for the audit. And if it is not impossible, you have a record or you have a kind of your customer acceptance, and they know that if you have to do the audit in a different time, but they know it, which is good for you. Flexibility in the US laws or local law, the stringent approach or corporate support. We see that these challenges include no restrictions in working hours weekly. Scheduling mandatory overtime is not restricted in the USA. Providing 2 days off in a 14 days period is not required by US law. Conducting fire drills for all shifts in a year is not mandatory. Fire drill procedure is mandatory. Documents in a corporate office, pre-selection of employee data is not allowed. So it's quite normal that we go by our local law, which are not restricting, and how we overcome this challenge. This is a significant challenge, and this is a really strong challenge management to overcome, because not all scheme or standard will ask you to be stringent with the highest level of approach. However, standard like SMETA, SA 8000, they will ask to comply fully with the SMETA requirement or the scheme requirement. Some standard will allow you to comply only with the local law. So you have to be prepared with the customer requirement. And one of those is identify the challenges and set target that you like to achieve those challenges. Aware and train supervisors, because they will run the employees. So please train your supervisor. Hey, this is the new policy. Make sure employees are within the new policy. So you also need to ensure training of the employees. You can work for PDCA approach. You take a new challenge, apply it, check it, and take actions. And if you have information in corporate office, you do not expect the auditor will wait for 1 day to the next day, or you do not expect auditor will give you advanced selection of employee interviews or data, because it is not allowed in the social audit. You must ensure resources or persons who will have the information to the auditor during the audit if he or she works from corporate. It could be Teams meeting or many other ways. Freedom of association, alternate means. This is another challenging area. Remember, we are sharing only few challenges because of our time limitation. It's a one hour. We are almost near to the QA session, but let me take a few more minutes. So direct policy to avoid or discourage union. This is, we experience maybe 60–70% of our audit. We see clear, say we do not encourage union or we avoid union. That is not accepted for almost any social audit. Alternate means of employees' collective decision is not clear. Remember, to have a union is not a requirement for any social audit. It requires you have a clear channel for collective decision process. Employee can raise their voice, and you do not decide for employees whether they go for union or not. That's the objective. So that's why you need to restate. If you go to the strategy, you see that you need to apply the non-biased statement where there is no discouragement or encouragement to union. If you say that I have an open door approach is your way to say you are having a good system, in those cases, you maintain proof of effectiveness of the open door policy. How every week maybe you can open the box, suggestion box, and then they are measured every month, and you share the good and corrective actions based on this, what is happening to the employees. That could be a proof of system being functioned. Lack of awareness that social audit requirements remain the same for all. Agency must be understand that the social audit requirement, that the reason you're having audit is same for the employees they supply to. So they will have to comply with these things. And it is your duty to meet and to tell them this is the guidance we are complying to, and your employees under the same scope. So it has to be, we need your kind of acknowledgement. Site does not have the policies in language workers speak. In USA, we have seen those who are having new resident card, they do not speak English very well. But for your case, remember, we are auditing for a human rights perspective and bigger, based on the scheme requirement, the aspect is bigger than the local law. So you would expect employee you are hiring, the language they speak, it is your responsibility to make sure they understand information in their language. Safety instruction you are providing by a translator only is not enough. You make sure the safety instructions are in the language they understand. Requested documents for the sampled agency employee are not available, as we discussed already. So you have to translate them, ensure agencies understand the social scope. And another main challenge is you will find the word, hey, I have Data Privacy Act in place, or I have confidential policy to protect information. That auditor, I repeat, auditor will be there to verify the system is functioning, so they will check the requested document. If you say data protection or privacy policy is in effect, it does not work and it is not helpful. As you have a contractual agreement with the staffing agency, with this agreement, they are bound to share information that shows employees are working legally. And you must also, for any social audit, you must also have a mechanism to check them that they are legal. So these are the strategies you can apply. With these things, I would leave it to Thomas about.
Thank you, Abdullah. We'll get to the very Q&A at the very end here. So thank you again. So everyone, SGS offers social audits, so feel free to reach out with any of your needs to us, please. I would please ask you and invite you to take out your cell phones and scan the QR code so that you can access and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we post a lot of on-demand content, such as webinars, recordings, behind-the-scenes videos, training sessions, and so on and so forth. It's pretty live on there, so if you could do that, that would be great. I'll give you a few moments to do that. Okay. So please see my contact info if you want to book any social audits or have any questions after the webinar. We also have 2 web links on here. One is for general certification. One is for our very own social audits landing page with a lot of information. So please feel free to reach out and check that out. Okay, we have some questions from the audience. Abdullah, are you ready to answer some of those? I would read them to you and then you would answer.
Sure, I'm ready.
Okay, we have a question from Rajpal. What are you doing to comply with the newly introduced Fighting Against Forced Labor and Child Labor in Supply Chains Act, also known as the Canadian Modern Slavery Act? Are we doing anything in that scheme, Abdullah?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you for the questions. I will answer that, even though our audience is for USA today. But the answer to the specific question is any social audit scheme or module will have all the elements of human rights guiding principle. Canada recently implemented that introduced the law for protection of child labor and forced labor and into these specific requirements we have said. So like I said, our newest SGS responsible supply chain has already introduced these human rights elements and sector specific, and it covers those elements to be checked by the auditor by default. But for a few customers we have experienced, because they have their own module, and we provide the services of the social audit, not almost no cases in consultancy. However, we also provide guidance for checklist development. And we did work, already we have worked with 1 or 2 companies to develop their module, social audit module, and cover those elements so that their social audit checklist ensuring that these questions are answered. So I'm not sure, maybe in details we can explain it more, but for this, I think that is my answer now.
Okay, thank you, Abdullah. And then we have a couple questions from Francisco. So question number 1, you mentioned that a common part of the social audit is to verify the management system around it, but some social audits are pure fact-checking or checklist. There is no management system concept involved. Is that correct?
It is correct. That's what I said, that SGS recently changed their COC to RSCA, Responsible Supply Chain Act, and covering management system elements. And these days, most social audit scheme or standard are covering those elements or changing or updating their conduct to cover the management system approach. For example, a standard like FSSC 24000, it is purely based on the management system approach, and they are covering social audit elements. SGS already did, and we started auditing them. And this is the going forward, this is the future. Yes, you are correct. Many COC don't have the management system approach yet covered, but they're working on it. I know. Thank you.
Right, it's an upcoming thing. Okay. Okay. Another question from Francisco. Do we provide FSSC 24000, as we do not have it listed?
Yeah, we do provide FSSC 24000 audit. We have auditors trained and approved for the audits, and we are ready to go for it. That is why we have this session to share those schemes and products. And in the future, we'll have product-specific webinar to talk about specific product like FSC 24000 or other scheme we have.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, last but not least, from Francisco. SMETA does not set a risk assessment, nor does it check for PDCA. And you at the same time promote SMETA and say do a PDCA. Isn't that contradictory? ISO standards verify that a PDCA is up and running. You should point out that PAS 24000 solves that issue. Any comments on that, Abdullah?
Yes, those are very good questions. First of all, we discuss PDCA as a strategy for you to be advanced, to be efficiently implement the policy or the challenges you have so that it is covered for any challenge you have now or in the future. Second thing is, there are some upcoming development or updates coming from SEDEX as well that will cover the management system approach. And like we discussed, many standard and many schemes are already working to update their standard to include how effectively an audit system can be, developed or updated. And that's why your question is correct, but it does not mean that when we make a strategy how to ensure to overcome those challenges we face in a social audit, we can do the PDCA. This way you can do within yourself, check PDCA approach, you can do the balances within you so that when you have the audit comings, you are advanced, you are good, because those challenges are critical. flexible in the local law. It's critical challenge, union critical challenge. So how do you ensure it is really effective? Go with the highest level of approach, which is PTC or with more tools you can use. Thank you.
Okay, and one more question from Rita. She's asking how to do social risk assessment. Well, I think I can answer that question.
Yes, yeah, I'll let you answer it.
It's a fairly straightforward process. You would write us that you want a social risk assessment. We would get on a call with you, and we would ask if you know what type, or we would recommend one, and then we would have you fill out a questionnaire. And based upon the information that you would supply to us, we would then provide you with a cost proposal and look at available dates. So I hope that answers. It's fairly, just contact me and I can help you with that. Thank you. All right, well, we don't have any further questions, so I thank everyone for being with us. Have a great rest of the day, and have a great rest of the week as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Sorry, we had some connection issue in the beginning or sound issue, but thank you everyone for joining the session and your questions. Thank you so much. This is Abdullah. Bye now.